I'll share with you some introductory slides and some context for the forum. Then we have one of the main events of today. Dr. Colin Henry, Chief Clinical Officer, will be launching the new Masters in Digital Health Transformation, which opens for registration today. We'll have Professor Anne Ledwith from UL, and we'll have actually 4 speakers from the 4 aspects of the quadruple helix: HSE, industry, academia and patient groups presenting to us. Dr. Michael Hartley has joined us. He's chair of the Oireachtas Committee on Health, and he will be giving us a very interesting talk entitled The 1% Perspective, and throwing out some novel ideas around how we might use open innovation with respect to our electronic health record strategy. Always controversial, we have Professor Anthony Staines, who will talk to us about the logic of open innovation. We then have a demo of the slaughter care shared record. I think this will be something really interesting. This didn't exist 2 weeks ago, and we've been working with the Ripple Foundation and starting a budding collaboration with the RCSI to actually evolve the slaughter care record to a minimal viable project or product. And then lastly, and probably very importantly, we have 2 really interesting innovations that we want to showcase. One's from a company called Synchrify. I saw this in action yesterday in Bon Secours in Galway, and the comment of the ward managers that this is a way safer solution. And we also have a stay left intervention from Blue Drop Medical, who will be talking about their new device to help reduce amputations due to diabetic foot ulcers. And then finally we have Maurice O'Connor, the Assistant Secretary General at the Department of Health, who's currently at a Brexit meeting, but will be here to share some closing remarks. So without further ado, can I invite our CEO, Paul Reid, to the podium, please.
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, everybody. I must say I'm blown away by the attendance this morning. I wasn't quite sure what I was walking into. I know there's some great speakers, and best of luck with the timekeeping today, because you're going to have to be ringing that bell very quickly. So I won't take up too much of it. But just say a few opening comments if I can. First of all, from my perspective, as CEO of the HSE for the past 3 months, and working with our new board, I think today is absolutely a great showcase in terms of what's possible, what's already existing in the system, and how we can showcase actually a lot of what's good about the HSE, the health system, and the health service in general. Because one of the major priorities of our new board, and myself as CEO, is to build trust and confidence in the organisation, and build trust and confidence in the health delivery system. And one of the ways we can do that is exactly by a number of initiatives that you're all talking about today and leading and showcasing on today. But in a little bit of perspective, actually most of my career, a major part of my career, has been in communications and ICT and technology. I spent 28 years actually with Aircom, previously known as Telecom Éireann, previously known as something else, now known as Air, actually, as you know. And in that role, in running the networks organisation and the ICT organisation, I would have worked with many major sectors all across Ireland in helping them think about innovation, and helping them think about technology, and in helping them interact with the people who use their services in a very different way. So it's all very relevant in terms of what we're doing here today. And there's 3 simple ways, from my perspective, I like to think about innovation and technology and digital. And the first way really is, sometimes, before I talk about it, sometimes people can't put all of that category into the box of, that's the IT organisation, and we need the infrastructure, and we need the support, so when all those come along, we will be able to deliver all this innovation. Well, actually, it's not really like that, as many as the showcases that you have in the agenda today will demonstrate, because a lot of digital and a lot of the innovation starts actually by looking at the process, looking at how are we carrying out work, how do we do activities every day of the week, how do people engage with us every day of the week. And when you start to think of it from that perspective, actually you get over the block of a big technology enabler. Just think about how do we organise, how do we interact, how do we work through processes on every day of the week. The second area I'd like you to, from my experience, and again the agenda reflects it, is that think about it from the outside in. This is not just for HSE people in the room, because I know we have people from a wide set of stakeholders. but always encouraging everybody to think about it from the outside in. If we look at issues or we look at opportunities from the inside out, we don't meet the expectations of the people who are going to engage with us. So the first primary lens and focus, for me, for my role, is to look at it from the public's perspective, the patient's perspective, our stakeholders' perspective. So, please try bring that lens into all of our thinking, because you actually come to very different solutions when you look at it from the people engaged. And I'll say we've some great showcases here today, but equally we've some very challenging issues. You see it on social media, you see some of the letters and how we correspond with people. Or can you come back to us by letter or by fax? Nobody's going to do that. And so there's a real opportunity for us to nearly leapfrog in a very different way in terms of how we do it. The second group of people that I'd like us to always think about are our stakeholders, and there's many of them we don't just deliver the health delivery system ourselves at HSE. There's many presenters and speakers here today who are interacting directly with the public and are equally interacting directly with ourselves. So there's a bit of a shared responsibility here. We collectively think about how the end person, the patient, or the people in the public use our services, engage with us. And the final piece I'd like you all to continue to think about it as you're bringing through the innovation that you have is from a staff retention and motivation perspective. Because many of you are involved in recruiting new people, many of you are new to the system, and a generation of new employees think about the world very differently, and they think about the world of work very differently. And our capacity to attract and retain people for the future will be to the extent of which we make the world of work very different for people. Because many of you have children, I have very grown-up children. They come into work with a very different frame of reference. And if we have very clunky ways of carrying out process, it's not very motivating. And it's not what the new generation will expect us to come to work. So 3 kind of primary messages from me. Please continue to think about it from a process perspective. Please continue to think about it from the outside in perspective, from our stakeholders, from the public, from the patients. And please continue to think about it from a staff retention and motivation issue. And I think if we have that lens going into all of the showcases that you have here today and others that we can work on, I think we're into a very different space. So well done to Martin, I should say, and all of the team for putting today together. I think we have a tremendous set of speakers, so best of luck today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul. You've kept us actually right on schedule, so now I have the task to stay on schedule myself. I have more slides than I have minutes to talk, so I'm going to talk very quickly. I want to talk briefly about the approach in the Digital Academy. I wanted to start with a quote from a guy called Reid. In an unstable, complex system, small islands of coherence have the potential to change the whole system. I think we'd all agree our national health system is an unstable, complex system, and what we want to try and do through the Academy is actually bring some coherence and actually be a catalyst to drive some digital change. What the Academy is about, we're about firstly accelerating the adoption of digital technologies and solutions across the broader organisation to enable its launch care. And very much we're about building digital capability, digital capacity and digital competence, and that will be a key theme running through our talk today. Many years ago, Lincoln said this: the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. And I think there are lots of paradigms that we took as sort of gospel in the past that are changing. One of them is the doctor knows best, so now it's the doctor plus the nurses plus the multidisciplinary team plus IBM Watson and plus the patient and his family, and very often now patients will come with better information to their appointments than the doctors have. And Eric Topol has famously written the book, The Patient Will See You Now, and that's an indication of the new paradigm that is upon us. Another new paradigm is in terms of our paradigm changes in terms of actually building capacity, that we just need to add more beds to fix the problem. Tony O'Brien famously said that the HSE can't go to Bargaintown to actually buy beds, and an estimation by the Irish Times that it took the cost would be about $1 million per bed. But there are things we can use, approaches in digital technology to actually increase capacity without actually further physical investment. And just this week the government announced 480 beds to be delivered over the next couple of weeks. The 2 innovations that we'll showcase later in the forum, one based on data from trialling this product in the UK, effectively increasing bed capacity by 10% through better ward management. And the other innovation from Blue Drop Medical basically reduces the demand for beds by reducing the number of diabetic foot ulcers and resulting amputation. So that's another paradigm. Digital technologies can help solve our bed and trolley process. We know there are multiple different disruptive technologies all showing up at the same time, and this for the first time in history. In the past there was the steam engine, the internal combustion engine, and they came and they drove a big wave of change. But now we have social, we have cloud, we have the Internet of Things, and basically they're creating a chain reaction of disruptive technologies, and blockchain is coming, and then there's the next big thing, whether that be genomics or digital medicine, but it's a perfect storm, and we have the opportunity in healthcare to harness these technologies. And we know the pace of change will never be this slow again. So as we embark on this shift from analog to digital in our healthcare system, and as we move from a reactive healthcare system to a proactive healthcare system, we'll see how we'll be able to bend the cost curve and do a lot more with less, because we're using digital technologies which are ever improving every year based on Moore's law. We'll be able to have a real-time health system, or at least aspire to a real-time health system. We'll have one that is citizen-centered, patient-centered, as our CEO mentioned, and one where we can actually take advantage of data. There's lots of data, but there are very few examples where we're using data to close the loop and drive both system-wide improvements and patient improvements. Since last year, we've been talking about a strategy called Stay Left, Shift Left, and this is the way I describe it, Saunter Care in 4 words. Stay Left is about using technologies to keeping well people well, and Shift Left is about using technology to help move patients from an acute setting to a community setting to a home setting. A very good example is the Da Vinci robot in UHL, which takes an 8-day colorectal procedure and turns it into a 1.5-day procedure with a lot less blood loss for the patient, and the patient is home a lot earlier, freeing up beds. And all the time when we see these kind of interventions, we see reduced costs of care, we see improved quality of life, improved quality of care, and very often the clinician experience is improved. So Stay Left, Shift Left is very core to our message in the Digital Academy. As Paul mentioned, actually, digital transformation is not about the technology. Actually, it starts with the process and the people. But it's also about the culture, it's about leadership and energy, and the new Masters that Colin Henry will launch is very much focused on actually helping us build the digital leaders that will help change the culture in the HSE so that we're really receptive to the adoption of digital technologies. A couple of years ago, I wrote a book called Open Innovation 2.0, just to prove I'm not making this up, but we've been thinking about how do you actually transform an industry using digital technologies. Myself and a colleague from the Commission, we looked at why was Apple successful, why did Motorola fail, why did Nokia fail? And these aren't 2 Bond girls, they're actually 2 of the best practitioners of open innovation, one from Cluj in Transylvania, the other lady from Umeå in Sweden. But what we think of is a new primordial soup where we have everybody innovating together around a shared purpose. So where we have hospitals, primary care centres, suppliers, patients, all innovating together. And this is what we talk about, the quadruple helix innovation. We have the power of shared vision, where government, industry, academia and citizens, we could do a lot more together if we're working towards a shared vision. This is the science bit. When we looked at how major digital change was achieved, we came up with a set of design patterns. You need a platform, you need an ecosystem that you can orchestrate. You have to design for adoption, you have to industrialize the innovation process, you have to embrace agile techniques, and you have to use data-driven innovation. And in the ecosystem that we've gathered today, we're hoping to try and use these patterns to drive results far greater than any one organisation would do. So the HSE network is 130,000 people, but the HSE on its own can't transform the healthcare system. It needs everybody to work together. We're delighted, and since May 23rd, we've been working with a cohort of Irish professors to design a new Masters. We've been also working with IBEC to test this with ICOSI, the patient group, and today is accumulation of that, and Colin will talk about that in a second. Ross Cullen has recently joined us, and we've been copying an innovation from the UK, the idea of a digital factory, where we can basically test new technologies and, very importantly, build a business case for fast adoption. And 2 of the innovations that we'll see today are later on are top of the list in terms of the innovations that we're tracking in our digital factory portfolio. We have an ambition over a decade basically to move Ireland from a laggard in digital health to be a European leader. We initially thought we could do this in 5 years, but it's probably impossible. But who knows? But we aspire to move from being a laggard to a European leader in 10 years. So let me close there, and I want to invite Dr. Colin Henry to address us and launch the new Masters in Digital Health Transformation. Please.